Thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us about the events that led to your near-death experience? Of course. It was a beautiful summer afternoon, the kind that makes you grateful to be alive. The sun was shining, there was a gentle breeze, just perfect weather for a walk. I was 50 years old at the time, in good health, and taking my usual stroll through Jefferson Park near my home. I've always been an animal lover, so when I spotted a stray dog near the pond, I didn't think twice about approaching it. The poor thing looked like it had seen better days, its fur was matted and it seemed hungry. Many of our listeners are probably nodding along, thinking they'd do the same thing. What made you decide to approach the dog? You're right, I think most animal lovers would have the same instinct. I had some leftover sandwich in my pocket, and I thought, here's a chance to do a small act of kindness. I remember thinking about how my own dogs at home would react if they were lost and hungry, and someone offered them food. It just seemed like the right thing to do. That's a natural and compassionate response. Did you notice anything unusual about the dog as you got closer? Looking back, there were definitely warning signs that I chose to ignore. As I approached, I noticed the dog's eyes seemed glazed over, and it was panting heavily. There was something off about its behavior. But I brushed aside my concerns, telling myself I was just being paranoid. It's often hard to ignore our instinct to help, even when there might be danger. What happened when you offered the food? It all happened so fast. One moment I was holding out the sandwich, and the next. It was like a switch flipped. The dog lunged at me with a speed and ferocity I've never seen before. Its jaws clamped down on my forearm, and the force of the attack knocked me off balance. I stumbled backward and fell hard on the ground. That sounds terrifying. How did you react in that moment? Honestly, I was in shock. The impact knocked the wind out of me, and before I could even process what was happening, the dog was on top of me. I remember thinking, this can't be real. This doesn't happen in real life. But the pain was very real. I can only imagine how frightening that must have been. Can you describe what was going through your mind? It was a surreal mix of terror and disbelief. The dog was tearing at my neck and face, and I could feel its hot breath and saliva. The pain was searing, like nothing I'd ever experienced. I tried to fight it off, but its strength was overwhelming. In those moments, my thoughts raced to my family. I had a vivid image of my wife answering the door to police officers, being told that her husband had been killed by a dog in the park. It seemed so absurd, yet so horrifyingly real. I remember thinking, this is how I die. This is how it ends. And there was this profound sense of regret for all the things I hadn't done, the words I hadn't said to my loved ones. That's incredibly powerful. It really brings home how quickly life can change. How long did the attack last? It felt like an eternity, but in reality, it was probably only a couple of minutes. Just when I thought it was over, when I felt myself starting to lose consciousness, I heard shouting. A group of joggers had seen the attack and came running to help. Thank goodness for those joggers. What happened next? It's a bit of a blur, to be honest. I remember the dog being pulled off me, the sound of it snarling and snapping. One of the joggers was on his phone, calling 911, while another was pressing something against my neck, trying to stop the bleeding. I was drifting in and out of consciousness by then. The pain was overwhelming, but there was also this strange sense of detachment, like I was watching the scene from outside my body. The last thing I remember before blacking out completely was the wail of approaching sirens. That must have been an incredibly traumatic experience. When did you next become aware of your surroundings? I have flashes of memory from the ambulance ride and being rushed into the emergency room. Bright lights, urgent voices, the sting of needles. But my first clear memory is waking up in the intensive care unit, surrounded by beeping machines and worried faces. The doctors later told me that I had lost a dangerous amount of blood and that the dog's bites had come perilously close to my jugular vein. They had worked frantically to stabilize me and had begun rabies treatment immediately. Rabies treatment? So the dog was confirmed to be rabid? Yes, that's right. Animal control had captured the dog, and tests confirmed it was infected with rabies. That explained its aggressive behavior. The doctors told me I was incredibly lucky. If the joggers hadn't intervened when they did, I likely wouldn't have survived. That's chilling. How did you feel when you learned this? It was a mix of emotions. On one hand, I felt immense gratitude to be alive and to the people who had saved me. But there was also fear. Rabies is a terrifying disease, and even with prompt treatment, it's not always successful. The next few days were critical. I drifted in and out of consciousness, plagued by fever dreams and hallucinations. The rabies was taking hold, and my body was fighting for survival. It was during one of these feverish episodes that my near-death experience began. This is where your story takes an extraordinary turn. Can you describe how the experience started? It was the strangest sensation. One moment, I was lying in the hospital bed, my body racked with pain and chills. The next, I felt myself separating. It's hard to put into words, but it was as if I was gently lifted out of my physical form. I found myself floating near the ceiling of the hospital room, looking down at my own body. The sight was shocking. I was pale and still, connected to various machines that beeped and whirred. My wife was sitting by the bedside, holding my hand and weeping softly. That must have been incredibly disorienting. How did you react to seeing yourself and your wife in that state? It was surreal. I felt an overwhelming urge to comfort my wife, to tell her I was okay, but I couldn't make a sound. I tried to touch her shoulder, but my hand passed right through her. It was frustrating and confusing, but strangely, I wasn't afraid. Many people who have had near-death experiences report a similar feeling of calm. Did you experience that? Absolutely. Despite the strangeness of the situation, I felt an incredible sense of peace. It was as if all my earthly worries and fears had melted away. As I was taking in the scene, I noticed a soft, warm light starting to fill the room. It seemed to be coming from the doorway. I felt drawn to it, and without really thinking about it, I floated out into the hallway. Can you describe what you saw in the hallway? It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. The hospital corridor stretched out before me, but it was different now. The harsh fluorescent lights were gone, replaced by a gentle, golden glow. As I moved down the hallway, I saw other patients and staff, but they didn't seem to notice me. It was like I was watching scenes from a movie, a doctor consoling a grieving family, a nurse checking on a sleeping patient, a young child being wheeled to surgery. I felt a deep sense of compassion for all of them. That's fascinating. Did you try to interact with anyone? I did, but it quickly became clear that they couldn't see or hear me. It was as if I was observing from another dimension. As I continued down the hallway, the light became brighter and brighter. Soon, the hospital surroundings began to fade away, replaced by what looked like a long tunnel. The walls of this tunnel were shifting and swirling with colors I can't even describe, hues that don't exist in our world. Many people who have had NDEs describe a similar tunnel of light. What did you experience as you moved through it? It was the most extraordinary sensation. I felt myself being drawn upward and forward, moving faster and faster. There was no fear, only a sense of peace and anticipation. As I neared the end of the tunnel, the light became almost blindingly bright, but it didn't hurt my eyes. And then, suddenly, I emerged from the tunnel into paradise. There's really no other word for it. Can you try to describe this paradise for our listeners? I'll do my best, but I have to say, earthly words fall short of capturing its true beauty. Imagine stepping into the most perfect spring day you've ever experienced, but magnify that feeling 1,000-fold. The colors were more vivid than anything on earth. The grass was an impossible shade of green, the sky a deep, rich blue. Before me stretched a vast meadow, dotted with flowers of every color imaginable. In the distance, I could see majestic mountains, their peaks capped with glistening snow. A crystal-clear stream meandered through the landscape, its waters sparkling in the warm light. It sounds breathtaking. Was there anything else that stood out to you? Yes, there was an enormous tree near the stream. It reminded me of an ancient oak, but much larger and more magnificent. The leaves seemed to shimmer with a golden light of their own. But what struck me most was the overwhelming sense of peace and love that permeated everything. It was as if the very air was alive with joy and compassion. I felt more at home, more at peace than I ever had in my life. That's a beautiful description. Did you encounter anyone or anything in this place? Yes, and this is where it gets even more incredible. As I took in the scenery, I noticed movement all around me. To my amazement, I saw animals of all kinds roaming freely through the meadow. Animals? What kinds of animals did you see? Every kind you can imagine, and some I'd never seen before. There were familiar animals like deer, rabbits, and squirrels, but also exotic creatures I'd only seen in zoos or nature documentaries. A majestic elephant ambled by, using its trunk to pluck leaves from the great tree. Nearby, a family of monkeys played in the lower branches. That's extraordinary. How were these animals behaving? That's what was truly remarkable. All these animals were coexisting peacefully. Predator and prey stood side by side, with no fear or aggression. I saw a lion lounging in the sun, while a gazelle grazed contentedly just a few feet away. It was like a scene from the Garden of Eden. It sounds idyllic. Did you interact with any of these animals? Yes, and this is where it became intensely personal. As I was taking in this incredible scene, a golden retriever bounded up to me, tail wagging furiously. With a jolt of recognition, I realized it was my childhood dog, Max, who had passed away when I was 12. Oh, wow. That must have been quite emotional. How did you react? I was overwhelmed with joy. I knelt down and Max leaped into my arms, covering my face with enthusiastic licks. I could feel his soft fur, smell his familiar doggy scent. It was so real, so vivid. As I hugged Max, I noticed other animals approaching. There was Whiskers, the cantankerous old cat who'd been my companion through college and my early married years. And there was Buddy, the loyal German shepherd who'd been part of our family until just a few years ago. So you were reunited with all your past pets? Yes, and it was the most joyful reunion you can imagine. Each of these beloved pets greeted me in turn, and I was struck by how whole and healthy they all appeared. Max, who had been old and arthritic in his final years, now moved with the energy of a young pup. Whiskers, who had lost an eye in a fight, now had both eyes shining bright. That's incredibly moving. Did you have any communication with these animals? That's where it gets even more amazing. As I sat there, surrounded by my old animal friends, I heard a deep, resonant voice say, "Welcome, David. We've been expecting you." A voice? Whose voice was it? I looked up to see a massive lion standing before me. But this was no ordinary lion. Its mane seemed to glow with an inner light, and its eyes held a wisdom and kindness I'd never seen in any earthly creature. A talking lion? That's quite something. Were you afraid? Surprisingly, no. The lion radiated an aura of benevolence and authority that put me completely at ease. I felt like I was in the presence of a wise and loving teacher. What did this lion guide tell you? The lion explained that I was in a place where the spirits of animals and humans coexist in harmony. In this realm, he said, all beings are equal. The artificial boundaries and hierarchies of the earthly world do not exist here. He went on to explain that every living creature has a soul, and that these souls are all connected in a great web of life. When animals die on Earth, their spirits come to this place to be healed and to continue their journey. That's a profound message. Did you ask any questions? Yes, I was full of questions. I asked about wild animals and even about creatures we often consider pests. The lion's eyes seemed to twinkle as he replied, "All life is sacred. From the mightiest elephant to the tiniest ant, each has its place in the grand design. Here, they all find peace and purpose." As if to demonstrate this point, I watched as a butterfly landed on the lion's nose, completely unafraid. The sight filled me with a sense of wonder and reverence for the interconnectedness of all living things. It sounds like this experience was changing your perception of animals and their place in the universe. Absolutely. It was a complete paradigm shift. The lion invited me to explore this heavenly realm further, and as we walked together through the meadow, I saw countless scenes that challenged everything I thought I knew about animals. Can you give us some examples? Well, I saw a group of children playing with young tiger cubs, their laughter ringing out across the field. Nearby, an elderly woman sat on a bench, surrounded by a flock of colorful birds that seemed to be singing just for her. I saw a man in a wheelchair, his face lit up with joy as he ran his hands through the soft fur of a wolf. The wolf nuzzled him gently, its eyes full of understanding and compassion. These sound like very emotional scenes. How did they affect you? They touched me deeply. The lion explained, in this place, the pain and limitations of the physical world are healed. Here, the true nature of souls can shine through, unencumbered by bodily constraints or societal prejudices. I began to understand that the bonds between humans and animals are far deeper and more significant than I had ever imagined. Did you learn anything more about the nature of animals in this afterlife? Yes, the lion shared many insights that challenged my understanding of animals and their place in the universe. In your world, he said, humans often see themselves as separate from and superior to other animals. But from a higher perspective, all souls are equal in their capacity for love and their importance in the cosmic order. He explained that animals, in their own way, are as complex and emotionally rich as humans. They feel love, fear, joy, and pain. They form bonds, make choices, and learn from their experiences. That's a perspective that many animal rights advocates share. Did the lion say anything else about this? Yes, he made a point that really stuck with me. He said, the main difference is that animals are often more in tune with their true nature and the rhythms of the universe. They haven't built the mental barriers that many humans have. As he spoke, I noticed a group of horses galloping across a distant field. Their movements were so graceful and free, it almost looked like they were dancing. The lion followed my gaze and nodded approvingly. "Those horses," he said, "are expressing pure joy. In your world, they might have been racehorses, trained to compete and perform. Here, they run simply for the pleasure of it, fully embracing their true nature." That's a beautiful image. Did you see any other examples of animals behaving differently than they might on Earth? Absolutely. As we continued our journey, I saw countless examples of animals displaying intelligence and emotional depth that I'd never imagined possible. We passed by a clearing where a group of elephants was gathered around what looked like a pile of colored stones. As I watched, I realized they were using their trunks to create intricate patterns with the stones, almost like a mosaic. "Are they making art?" I asked, astonished. The lion nodded. "In this realm, all beings are free to express their creativity and intelligence without the limitations of their physical forms. These elephants are indeed creating art, expressing their memories and emotions through color and pattern." That's fascinating. It challenges our assumptions about animal intelligence, doesn't it? Absolutely. And it wasn't just the elephants. Nearby, I saw a group of dolphins floating in a shimmering pool of water. But they weren't just swimming, they appeared to be having an animated conversation with a group of humans sitting by the water's edge. Somehow, I could sense the complexity and depth of their communication, even though I couldn't understand the specifics. "Dolphins are highly intelligent and social creatures," the lion explained. "Here, they can share their wisdom and experiences directly with human souls, free from the barriers of language and species difference." It sounds like this experience gave you a new perspective on animal intelligence and consciousness. Did you have any other significant encounters? Yes, there was one experience that particularly stands out. As we walked through a wooded area, we came across a small clearing. In the center sat a massive gorilla, surrounded by a group of attentive animals of all kinds, birds, small mammals, even a few reptiles. The gorilla seemed to be teaching or sharing something with the group. As we approached, I could sense the deep wisdom and gentleness emanating from this great ape. A gorilla teacher? That's quite an image. Did you learn who this gorilla was? Yes, the lion introduced me to the gorilla, whose name was Koko. In life, the lion explained, Koko was famous for learning human sign language and demonstrating the cognitive abilities of great apes. Here, she continues to bridge the gap between species, sharing her unique perspective. Koko turned her gentle gaze to me, and I felt a wave of understanding wash over me. Without words, she conveyed to me the importance of treating all living beings with respect and compassion. I saw flashes of her life on Earth, the connections she'd made with humans, the love she'd shared, and also the pain of being one of the few of her kind to be able to communicate directly with humans. That must have been a profound encounter. Did it change your view of animals in some way? Absolutely. Koko's silent message drove home the reality that animals are thinking, feeling beings with rich inner lives. It made me realize how often we underestimate or dismiss the intelligence and emotional capacity of other species. But the encounter also filled me with a sense of hope. Koko showed me visions of a future where humans and animals could communicate more directly, where we could learn from each other and coexist more harmoniously. That's a beautiful vision. Did the lion guide have anything to add to this? Yes, as we left the clearing, the lion spoke again. "The bonds between humans and animals are ancient and deep," he said. "In caring for animals, humans often access the purest and most selfless forms of love. And in return, animals offer unconditional acceptance and teach invaluable lessons about living in the moment." We walked on, and I saw more scenes that illustrated this point. There was a woman reuniting with a horse she had loved in life, their joy palpable as they galloped together across a sunlit field. I saw a man surrounded by a pack of dogs he had rescued and rehabilitated, their love and loyalty evident in every wagging tail and gentle nuzzle. These are beautiful images. Did you learn anything about how our treatment of animals on Earth affects their afterlife or our own? Yes, and this was perhaps the most sobering part of my experience. The lion led me to a quieter part of this heavenly realm, where the light seemed softer and more subdued. Here, I saw animals who had suffered in their earthly lives, laboratory animals, victims of abuse, endangered species driven to extinction. But rather than being in pain, these animals were surrounded by loving caretakers, both human and animal, who were helping to heal their spiritual wounds. That's a powerful image. Did the lion explain the significance of this? Yes, he did. The way humans treat animals on Earth has consequences, the lion explained. Not just for the animals, but for the humans themselves. Acts of cruelty darken the soul, while kindness and compassion make it shine brighter. He showed me how humans who had been cruel to animals were learning hard lessons in this afterlife, facing the pain they had caused and working to make amends. On the flip side, those who had shown kindness to animals in life found themselves surrounded by loving animal companions in this realm. That sounds like a form of karmic justice. Is that how you interpreted it? Not exactly. The lion was quick to clarify, it's not about punishment or reward. It's about growth and understanding. Every soul here is on a journey of learning and evolution. This really struck me. It wasn't about judging or condemning those who had mistreated animals, but about helping them understand the consequences of their actions and guiding them towards compassion. That's a powerful message about the importance of animal welfare. Did you gain any insights about how we can better care for animals on Earth? Yes, I gained several important insights. The lion emphasized that every act of kindness towards animals, no matter how small, has ripple effects throughout the web of life. Humans have been given stewardship over the earth and its creatures, the lion said. This is not a right to exploit, but a sacred responsibility to protect and nurture. He showed me visions of how simple actions could make a big difference. People choosing to adopt rescue animals instead of buying from breeders, families deciding to reduce their meat consumption, communities coming together to create wildlife corridors and protect natural habitats. These are all actions that our listeners could potentially take in their own lives. Did you see any larger-scale changes? Yes, I saw the profound impact of education, children learning about animal welfare and growing up to be compassionate advocates for all living beings. I witnessed the power of technology being used to help animals, drones monitoring endangered species, AI systems helping to reduce wildlife trafficking, virtual reality experiences allowing people to connect with animals in new ways. But the lion also showed me the consequences of inaction, species disappearing forever, ecosystems collapsing, the web of life unraveling. It was a stark reminder of the urgency of our responsibility to protect and preserve the natural world. That's a lot to take in. How did this experience change your perspective on life and death? It completely transformed my understanding of life, death, and our place in the universe. I realized that death is not an end, but a transition. Our connections with other beings, human and animal, continue beyond our physical existence. I also came to see that every life, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, has inherent value and purpose. The ant working tirelessly in its colony is just as important in the grand scheme of things as the majestic whale swimming in the ocean. Perhaps most profoundly, I understood that love is the fundamental force that binds all of creation together. The love between a human and their pet is just one expression of this universal love that permeates all of existence. That's beautiful. Can you tell us about how your experience concluded? As my time in this heavenly realm drew to a close, the lion led me back to the great tree where we had started. All the animals I had encountered on my journey seemed to gather around, creating a circle of love and light. The lion looked at me with those wise, kind eyes and said, "It's time for you to return. Your work on earth is not yet done." I felt a pang of sadness at the thought of leaving this beautiful place. "Do I have to go back?" I asked. The lion nodded. "You have been given this glimpse of the greater reality for a reason. Now you must return and share what you have learned. Remember, every act of kindness towards animals, every effort to protect and preserve the natural world, ripples throughout the universe and echoes in eternity." I felt myself beginning to fade from that realm. The last thing I saw was Max, my childhood dog, wagging his tail as if to say, "Until we meet again." Then there was a rush of movement, a sensation of falling, and suddenly I was back in my hospital bed, gasping for air. What was it like, coming back to your physical body? It was a shock to the system, to say the least. One moment I was surrounded by light and love, and the next I was acutely aware of the pain in my body, the beeping of hospital machines, the smell of antiseptic. I opened my eyes to see my wife's tear-stained face looking down at me. The doctors later told me that I had been in a coma for nearly 2 weeks, and that they had almost lost me several times. That must have been disorienting. How did you start to process what had happened to you? It took time. At first, I was just focused on the physical recovery, which was long and difficult. The rabies had taken a toll on my body, and I had to relearn many basic functions. But throughout the grueling rehabilitation process, the memory of what I had experienced gave me strength and purpose. As I got stronger, I started to share my experience with my wife and close family. Their reactions ranged from skepticism to wonder, but they all agreed that something profound had changed in me. Changed in what way? Well, for one thing, my connection with animals became even stronger. I found myself noticing and appreciating the wildlife around me in a way I never had before. Even insects, which I'd previously swatted without a thought, now fascinated me. But more than that, I felt a new sense of purpose. I knew that I had been given this experience for a reason, and that I had a responsibility to share what I had learned. And how have you acted on that sense of purpose? It has completely transformed every aspect of my life. I've become a passionate advocate for animal welfare and environmental conservation. I left my corporate job and now work full-time for a wildlife rehabilitation center. My wife and I have turned our property into a sanctuary for rescued farm animals. We've adopted several dogs and cats from shelters, and we volunteer regularly at our local animal shelter. I've also been sharing my story whenever I can, trying to help people understand the deep connection between all living beings. I've written a book about my experience and give talks at schools, community centers, and anywhere else people are willing to listen. That's truly inspiring. Have you faced any skepticism or criticism for sharing your experience? Oh, absolutely. There are plenty of people who think I'm crazy or that I hallucinated the whole thing due to the rabies and the medications. And I understand that skepticism. If someone had told me this story before my experience, I probably would have been skeptical too. But I've found that even many skeptics are moved by the message of compassion and interconnectedness. Whether or not they believe in the afterlife I described, they can relate to the idea that we have a responsibility to care for the animals and the natural world around us. That's a great point. The message is powerful, regardless of one's beliefs about the afterlife. How has this experience affected your day-to-day life? It's affected every aspect of my life. I've become much more mindful of how my daily choices impact animals and the environment. I've adopted a plant-based diet, I'm much more conscious about reducing waste and choosing eco-friendly products, and I make an effort to appreciate and connect with the natural world every day. But it's not just about big lifestyle changes. I find myself pausing to really observe and appreciate the animals I encounter, the birds at my feeder, the squirrels in the park, even the ants on the sidewalk. I try to see the individual soul in each of them, remembering what I learned in that other realm. That's beautiful. As we near the end of our time together, do you have any final message for our listeners? Yes, I would urge everyone to reconsider their relationship with animals and the natural world. Every being, from the smallest insect to the largest mammal, is a unique and valuable thread in the tapestry of life. How we treat these fellow creatures reflects on our own souls and shapes the world we live in. You don't have to have a near-death experience to understand this. Simply take the time to really observe and connect with the animals around you, your pets, the birds in your garden, even the insects in your local park. You'll start to see the intelligence, the emotions, the individual personalities that each one possesses. And then, let that understanding guide your actions. Make choices that reduce harm and promote well-being for all creatures. Adopt, don't shop, reduce your consumption of animal products, support wildlife conservation efforts, teach children to respect and protect animals. Remember, in the grand tapestry of the universe, we are all connected. The love and kindness we show to animals reverberates through that connection, making the whole world a little bit brighter. And in the end, isn't that what life is all about? Creating more love, more compassion, more understanding in the world. Every time you look into the eyes of an animal, try to see the soul behind them. In that moment of connection, you might just catch a glimpse of the heaven I experienced, a place where all beings coexist in harmony, bound together by love. Thank you so much for sharing your extraordinary experience with us, David. Your story is both moving and thought-provoking. I'm sure our listeners will be reflecting on it for a long time to come. Thank you for allowing me to share it. If my experience can inspire even one person to show more kindness to animals and appreciate the interconnectedness of all life, then reliving these memories has been more than worth it.